How would you feel if you could not feed yourself, live in a decent house, or have a job? Do you think you could handle it? Many people suffered this fate during the Great Depression in the 1930s. On October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed. This is known as Black Tuesday. As a result, during the 1930s, over 9,000 banks failed. When the banks failed, people lost their savings. This resulted in people not purchasing items, such as groceries. The businesses did not earn money, so they had to lay off people. It was a period of protests and hunger marches, and unionism spread like wildfire. But many people suffered quietly, ashamed of their poverty. No matter what their situation, the Great Depression changed those in the generation that survived it. Desco Condite. Cities were hit hard. People could not afford rent, so they moved in with each other. In one apartment, there could easily have been between 10 to 15 people. Those that didn't have an apartment to share lived in cardboard boxes and makeshift shelters. They were often in large groups, which came to be known as Hoovervilles. These small cities of cardboard boxes were called this as an insult to President Herbert Hoover, who was the sitting president when the stock market crashed. He was disliked by many because of his lack of initiative to better the nation's money problems. Thousands of people would wait in line for hours to receive a small portion of soup and bread because there was no other way to put food in their bellies. Many families had to leave behind their homes, possessions, and lives to travel to work. Some men became desperate and ashamed, so they hopped on trains looking for a new way to provide for their family or simply to run away and escape from their harsh reality. As a result, women and children were left to fend for themselves in a male-driven society. Unemployment rates weren't the only thing rising. Doctor visits just weren't part of the budget, so many people suffered from illnesses as part of worsening living conditions and malnutrition. Conditions were rough in the northern part of the U.S., but they were just as equally rough in the south and Midwest part of the United States. Rain suddenly stopped, and the soil and all the fields dried up. What was once some of the most prosperous lands in the country became nothing but a hard piece of dirt. As the drought worsened, winds began to sweep across the plains, and huge clouds of dust would barrel in like a tidal wave. April 14th, 1935 was known as Black Sunday. This is when the first wave of dust hit the Midwest and started the period known as the Dust Bowl. Donald Worcester said, "Suddenly there appeared on the northern horizon a black blizzard moving toward them. There was no sound, no wind, nothing but an immense boogery cloud." Donald Worcester, Dust Bowl, the Southern Plains in the 1930s. Dust poured down hard on this part of the country. Many people and animals suffered or died from dust pneumonia, which was caused by dust filling up their lungs. With crops failing, people couldn't make money or feed themselves and their families. And along with losing their crops, they also lost their homes. The immersion of dust, or the Dust Bowl, as it was called, only worsened the Great Depression. In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt became president and declared war on the Great Depression in his first inaugural address on March 4, 1933, 3 years into the Depression. He made a lasting impression when he said, "First of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself." This speech gave many people confidence that they had elected a man who was not afraid to take bold steps to solve the nation's problems. Over the next 8 years, he helped implement a series of programs known as the New Deal that brought back jobs and prosperity to the people and the nation. Franklin's New Deal did help the United States face the hardships of the Depression, but the nation did not fully recover until we joined World War II in 1939. With the war came more jobs and more money. From 1929 till the early 1940s, the American people suffered through the Great Depression, and whether they lived up north, the Midwest, or the South, every person was affected in some way when the stock market crashed on that fateful day on October 1929. How would you feel if you could not feed yourself, live in a decent house, or have a job? Do you think that you could handle it?